council meeting, November 25th, 2019, flag salute. Ms. Perry. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Kraus.
Here.
Ms. Damitz.
Here.
Ms. Blazert.
Here.
Mr. Lavasser.
Here.
Mr. Valchef.
Here.
Mr. Amendola.
Here.
Ms. Perry.
Here.
Mayor Bloom is absent. Solicitor Corbel.
Here.
Engineer Minsterman.
Here.
Public Works Director Doug Roski.
Present.
All right, motion for approval of the bill list dated November 25th, 2019.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Motion for approval of the minutes dated November 12th, 2019.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. You get the citizens' comments list?
We have senior dinners, which is informational events, which I am not familiar with. I think is what it says. And then food. So all those are not on the agenda.
I'm going to make a departure tonight, since I know we have people here about the senior dinners. And since it's not officially on the agenda, I'd like to make a statement, and then I will let the community comment. So I understand that there has been a mistake that has been long-standing, that Marcia, who has been in charge of the senior dinners, had requested a second weekend in December for the December dinner. Unfortunately, that never got changed on the event calendar. It was published in the newsletter that went to all 3,000 residents in the borough, and no one caught it. It has been advertised on Savvy Citizen, and no one caught it. As a result, because it was not on the administrative event agenda for the 14th, the room had been rented for another occasion. Marcia brought issues up last Friday, and we are generally at this point of the opinion that because it has been advertised so widely for the 21st, that administration and those of us on council will do what it takes to make everyone aware of the change and to do everything we can to make that work. Now, that said, I do want to hear what the community has to say, but I wanted to be clear that this was not just a decision that was made on the spur of the moment because we had an opportunity to rep the community hall, which is what I am now hearing. So let's start with Lori Garland.
Oh, am I supposed to do this?
Yes.
Okay, then.
And,
What song?
name and where you live.
It's,
Name and address.
it just has to be.
Lori
stated for the
Garland,
record.
North Emily Street. The seniors, I think, they should never take back seats. I mean, they're looking forward to this. This is, you know, some of their only entertainment throughout the whole year. A birthday party, is it the exact same day? I mean, is it the birthday?
My question to you, we are not trying to take this away.
Okay.
Is there an issue with leaving it on the 21st, which is the date that it has been advertised in the newsletter that went out to 3,000 residents. I mean, we're acknowledging
We wanted
that there was a
14th,
mix-up.
right? We checked- Yeah, well,
I mean, that's what we're asking here. You know, at this point, it's not that we.
you're not gonna change it to the 14th then, is that what you're saying, that that's just as is?
We'll talk, we will discuss this with council, go ahead. But at this point, I think that that's where we want to go, but let's hear community comment and then let's discuss it.
About the birthday party, may I speak? Or you know?
Well, what do you want to say about the birthday
Yeah,
party?
that seems to be the easiest function to reschedule.
I say something.
Go ahead.
Should I leave? Go ahead.
I just think that, you know, we can make everybody happy. If we have the 14th, and we put it all out in the papers or whatever we did. But anyway, we could do it. And then they could have their party. And nobody would be hurt by it.
Who can, no, they can have their party.
Whoever has asked for the day.
So you're saying you can do both of them on the same day? Is that
It's
what
not
you're
the
saying?
same day, no, the 14th we do the dinner. And then they could do theirs when they're having it, when?
So they rented the hall for the 14th because it showed that it was open and they had rented it.
We screwed up.
We screwed up, yes, we screwed up. We did, but it's been long-standing. It went out to 3,000 residents, every resident in the borough. And so
But they did see our menus and our
who are
dates. The people that were sitting, the people that come every month,
okay,
they know, they took these home the first time that we made them. And they
Right.
put them up, and they've got them, and they think it's the 14th.
Can I say something? We
yes,
have,
go right ahead, let's
No, we
take the
have the
next
paper.
person.
These have been
Please
put out-
Please come up and please explain.
my name's Augusta Williams, I'm from Crafton Plaza. We've had these flyers in our building posted for months and months and months. And it says December the 14th is our dinners. Roast beef and mashed potatoes, and everybody's seen this. This has been posted a long time ago, a long time ago.
At the beginning of the year.
Yeah, beginning of the year. So, you know, everybody in our building, people,
So
you know.
what you're saying is that what I'm hearing loud and clear is that the people that are here, the
The
five,
whole building, our whole building.
would not stand for going with the date that,
Yeah.
that,
Because we have this
that
on our
was
bulletin board.
advertised in October to the entire borough. There's no give for changing your date. That's what I'm hearing.
No, everybody, you know, everybody,
All right.
You're
Anybody
seeing
else
a little
want to speak? Okay.
condescending, but just the five of us, but we're representing.
I get that.
Okay, because
I do
that hurt a
get
little
that.
bit.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
I mean, this
Is there
is
anybody
the-
else that wants to speak?
I do.
Please.
Go ahead, Keith.
My name's Jean Marie Osborne, and I live up at the plaza too. Now, this date has been on our calendar since January of 19, 12 months. Now, people in our building are schedule conscious. If they see this, you yourselves must have something already to do in December. Take into consideration that this is the busy season. How on earth can you expect 40, sometimes we get 40 to 50 to 60 people, especially at Christmas. You want all of these people to change their plans?
All right, I hear you. I hear you. Thank you for coming.
Well,
But,
I have something else
Sure.
then. There's workers that help Linda and Marcia. They have something else to do that night too. Everybody makes plans in December far ahead of the day. Look at all the people that will be put out for one person. Why can't the party be moved?
all right, thank you. Thank you for your input. I really appreciate it. And there's, you want to
Tell
say
about the
something?
entertainment too.
I'm Norma Shooty, and I also live in the plaza. My big concern, if you guys change it, they're gonna be one short of a volunteer, because I will not be here the 21st myself. And that wouldn't be fair to everybody else to have it double up.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's just put this to bed. We are listening to our community comments. I would like each one to,
Want to just go around?
yes, let's just go around, because, I mean, we have significant community comment here.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Marcia on that, you know, administration made an error, all right? And that falls on council as a whole, all right? We obviously didn't have enough processes in place to validate the dates, and we apologize profusely.
So-
We spent a
Do we
good,
change, Philip, let's just,
yeah,
let's go around.
so,
Do we
I-
honor this?
well, I just want to,
Yeah,
just
okay,
articulate what's going on here. So, you know, with regards to managing through this, I mean, we all acknowledge what occurred, so it sounds as if, you know, I'd be all right with moving it to the 14th if we found a safe place to land the other people that rented out the room, and that goes down to, you know, what do we do now with the fact that we double booked
so
facility.
Philip, just state your preference, please, or if you want to pass to anybody else, that's fine.
Sure, I'll go on to the next person.
Okay, Marcia, we know you want the 14th.
Yes, because the entertainment, I mean, we were not gonna find entertainment.
That's
Okay.
right.
Brad,
Let's move it to the 14th.
okay.
Has anyone talked to the fire department about possibly
Well,
utilizing?
that may be,
their
that may be
facility?
Yes,
That's what I
yeah, we
thought.
reached out, and I think they're, you know,
I don't
Who
think we have
reached out?
anything back. I don't know that there's been anything back. So let's just, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
listening to this feedback, and, you know, because we've all talked earlier and came down to a different opinion. And so, listening to what the community is saying,
I think that we should hear back from the fire department and see if their place is available for the same day. And if it is, maybe they can help us with this.
okay, but would
I mean,
you like to see this stay on the 14th based on the feedback that we've got from our community?
yeah, sure.
Eric,
Yeah, it's a double booking, it should stay on the 14th.
okay. Alice,
Okay, I agree with that also.
All right.
It was.
all right. So,
But we had to find a place for
Will,
the other.
that it's gonna stay on the 14th. So thank you for coming.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for voicing your opinions. Thank you for listening to our side of it as to what caused it, that it was, you know, it was a mistake. And, you know, to have you come out and say so forcefully that this is important, the entire council has changed their mind based
Thank
on
you. We
this.
appreciate what you do,
Thank you.
because
Yeah, we
the
appreciate
community is wonderful, and
Right.
and the people of the community make the community, so I
All
appreciate
right,
that.
so we will do what it's gonna take, and it's gonna be on the 14th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if you don't wanna listen to the rest of the business.
No.
We're going.
I'll go down.
You don't want me jumping in anymore, so.
That was nice.
Clarification for
Yes.
RJ. What's our security deposit for the birthday party?
Oh, we'll waive that, but I can.
Yeah.
And do we have anything in our,
There's the
Bylaws.
Crafton,
There's the Crafton, that's a great place down
Fred?
there.
we'll help them find someplace else to land.
We will
Okay.
work it
Yeah, no, I
out
agree.
either if they choose a different date or if they would like to have it somewhere else.
right?
Now that we got the hard work done, let's move on.
Yes, all right, thank you,
Have
everyone.
you talked to the fire department, Phil? Have you talked to the fire
I
department?
reached out to Mike when Marcia expressed,
Yeah, what did he say?
he said
They
they
haven't rented
they have an event earlier in the day, and that he was gonna check into it, and
And we
it's
haven't
still,
heard back.
right.
Okay,
So
well,
we'll get it resolved.
there are some hopes there. Okay.
Yes, okay. Seniors will have their dinner on the 14th, and we'll help.
But we need to make sure, we need to publish a clarification you know, we need to post the bulletin to explain what happened.
We can send a savvy notice out, we can, you know, put it on the front page. It was just an error because every other one's on the third Saturday, so we set a recurring event. And
And
the
didn't
December
make an
one was the only
exception.
one that didn't change.
Yeah. All right,
So that was a
so,
mistake.
moving on. All right, so we've got that taken care of. Acknowledge receipt of the written reports, treasurer's report, financial report, Act 511 and trash collection reports, property tax collection report, police report, EMS report, ordinance officers report, building inspection report, public works report, fire department report, and library report. So that's it? Okay. I actually have no new business to discuss in my report. The mayor is not here, so let's move on to the engineer's report.
Thank you, Madam President. There's nothing to add to the engineer's report, no clarifications or revisions, so the report stands as presented.
Okay, and I was reading the report, and there are a few interesting things that I'd like you to call out about the recent meeting at Alcoasand, and how that went, that are outlined in your report with regards to Crafton Boulevard and the Cycle 5, please.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we had a meeting with Alcoasand, and it was a routine meeting that all of the municipalities are invited to come to Alcoasand to discuss proposed projects for the GROW grants, which are grants that are promoting storm water separation from the sanitary sewer system, storm water infiltration and inflow removal from the storm and sanitary systems. That's to reduce overflows, which are illegal overflows into the environment contaminated with sewage that flow eventually to our streams and rivers. Also, ways that reduce the amount of volume going to Alcoasand. So those are two big incentives that Alcoasand is looking for projects to do that. Crafton has several projects, specifically a project known as Crafton Boulevard that was submitted and approved for the, to date, the largest grant amount that's been issued to any municipality in Allegheny County by Alcoasand. It was $2 million was the grant. We actually capped out that grant. The project in itself was really eligible for about $2.4 million. And so what ended up happening was in that meeting, we talked through how we could get that additional funding. Since that original application, the next round of funding, the new cap is $10 million, not $2 million. So we walked through a process with Alcoasand to resubmit the project, essentially to accept the $2 million grant, resubmit the project, and hopefully be awarded that extra $400,000 in the grant funds. The project is still eligible, it just was capped because there was a $2 million cap on the grant program. So that was received very well by Alcoasand. We expect to get the additional grant funds in the next round. Also, the project won't be delayed because there's about a year's worth of work to acquire the necessary permits from the city, from the state, local regulatory agencies, for the environment. So there's several permits that are required to be obtained, applied for and submitted, that some of them take months to get. There's also, once the permits are given, the design of the work. So what we had submitted was a preliminary design, about 60% complete. That's required as part of the application to get the grant funding consideration. So that's completed. So it'll take about a year to get all the permits, to do the final design, and to be ready to bid the project as it stands. In that time is when we will hopefully hear from Alcoasand about this time, probably September of next year, as to the award of the additional funds. The other issue that was discussed at the meeting is that Alcoasand has, Crafton actually has a list of projects that were developed last year, and Alcoasand has already seen those projects. They're going to re-review the project list and see what next projects they would suggest we submit for grant funding. So you can get upwards of an 85% grant, which Crafton has done on some of its other submittals. This project was not quite that high, but close. So essentially, we're waiting to hear back from Alcoasand on what additional projects they would suggest we submit. That will go into phase 5, which is, those are due, it's a 2-step process for submittal. We make a preliminary submittal in February with some statistics on the reduction of stormwater that we would get out of the system as a result of the project. If you pass that test, then you get invited to submit an application, which is then due in the summertime. Then usually the decisions are issued in September as far as the awards. So we're on schedule for that process. So there are at least 2 grants, 3 that are currently being implemented. They're at various stages. You've already been awarded, and those are being implemented. There is Crafton Boulevard, which is in its process to start the permitting and start the final design, and then also to submit for the additional $400,000. And then in phase 5, in addition, could be some additional stormwater removal projects if Alcoasand sees fit to suggest them and council decides to make the formal submittal.
And did I understand correctly at that meeting that one of the things that was floated would be the idea of applying for multiple of those projects in cycle 5, but that we may be able to stretch the actual activity over a number of cycles?
Yes, that is one of the options, and the idea there is to try to catch these projects, get them all on the schedule before the funding runs out. So at some point, the money runs out. So the idea is if we can submit the remaining or some portion of the remaining projects and schedule them out over the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years, maybe longer. We'll see how long they allow us. We can get the approval of the funds now and then construct them over time. So that could be a way to hold a placeholder on the money that they have to offer.
All right, Philip, you were at that meeting. Is there anything you'd like to say about it?
Yeah, Rick, correct me if I'm wrong here, with regards to Alcoasand coming to the communities with projects, we were one of the communities that they came to us with a project for what, I believe it was about estimated $1.5 million over by the sled riding hill to do a separation. So I think Alcoasand recognizes that we're motivated, and they've done their own analysis, and they're going to communities that have low-hanging fruit, and that one project over there by the park seems to be a really viable option. So I think it's an exciting opportunity. So I don't know how many other communities you represent, but I thought it was nice that they actually are coming to the table with projects that they want us to work with them on.
Yeah, that's a good point. They did even suggest a project, a new project that we had not considered, and I'll say that we haven't considered all the projects in Crafton. We looked for the lowest hanging fruit projects that met criteria, but they were able to come up with an idea of their own as they're evaluating situations where it benefits them to reduce these stormwater infiltrations and inflows. So yes, there was a project presented by Alcoasand, and once we get all of their data, we'll then analyze the project as well to check the costs associated with it and the amount of volume that gets removed. So the way they grade these is it's cost per gallon removed. So the higher cost for each gallon to remove, the less attractive the project. So there are projects that are a few cents per gallon to remove, and then there are projects that are a few dollars per gallon to remove. So obviously the lesser cost projects. And the projects that have been recommended by Crafton are in the few cents to several cents, but well below the threshold for a full grant funding match. So lots of good stuff in Crafton. By far, definitely the most active community that we represent, possibly aside from the city of Pittsburgh, probably one of the most active communities as far as the funding and the applications that for most of the communities, the 83 municipalities in Allegheny County that are served by Alcosan.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Solicitor's report, do you want
Can
to
I
mention our
ask you a
executive?
follow-up question on
Oh,
that?
I'm sorry.
Just delaying some of these projects over, you mentioned 5 and 6 years. What are the risks in not attending to them that you would have an opinion on? Are we kicking the can down the road because of certain things, but could that bite us for not addressing them sooner?
Yeah, I think you're addressing the most priority projects first, Crafton Boulevard. Well, that's our biggest bang for the buck. And the other projects certainly meet the criteria, but I don't believe any of them are a nuisance, are causing, specific chronic problems in the municipality. So if that were to occur, similar to the Crafton Boulevard project, that's sort of what promoted that, was active, reported, overflows, basement backups, things of that nature. So if we see that occurring, if the system starts to get bad, then it can be elevated in the priority list.
Maybe a good time to also plug our mini grant program.
Yep, we passed an ordinance earlier this year, so if you have a backup due to, an extraordinary wet weather event or not, just any sort of sewage basement backup, let us know at the office, we're tracking them. After 2 such incidents, at that point you can basically submit the documentation, get 3 quotes from a plumber that is certified by Allegheny County, and the borough will reimburse for 50% of the lowest quote. Usually they're pretty close together, but the advertised draft budget for 2020 has about $8,000 budgeted to that mini grant program. So the thinking there is, once the funds are expended, that's it for that year, but you can certainly apply again next year. We haven't had anyone qualify yet. I don't really anticipate us, running out of funds unless there's everyone hiding out in the woodwork that hasn't sent the reports in. But I mean, we document anytime we get,
So we have the
backup.
mini grant program, and we have
Yes.
it funded for next year.
We do.
All right.
Thank you. I will just make one quick announcement that council held an executive session prior to this meeting to discuss real estate matters and collective bargaining. That's the end of my report.
Engineer, Kazarowski, do you have anything to report this evening? You're here, so I thought I'd give you the opportunity.
No, everything is basically in the public works report, just to let the public know that we continue the LEAD program. I'm dispatching 2 trucks on a regular basis, receiving some phone and call-ins requests. If it's not, leaves are out there not picked up within 3 days, give us a call. We'll make sure we get them. But,
So, yeah, you anticipate going for another week or 2 on that then?
yeah, there's still a lot of leaves on the trees. Unfortunately, again, it's going to be a late season. We'll run until the snow flies. So
Okay.
we'll keep the LEAD program open as needed. Weather.
Okay, super. Thank
Are people submitting service requests for that?
They do, yeah.
You're talking about on the website or call-in?
Well, both, really, but, yeah, we've had a few. I mean, you can definitely see there's an uptick around the fall and then over the summer, usually for the service requests, and there's kind of a trough right around, school start. So, yeah, a lot of those are for brush as well.
Yeah, we have about 6 or 7 requests for chipper service, ended up to 6. And leaf removal, I think I had a handful in the last 2 weeks, requests for pickup.
For the most part, I mean, in the info that we added to the website, which is off the flyer that, usually goes out, we tend to say, put them out, if it's been a couple days, it's fine to flag it, but it's not, the leaf pickup is not an on-demand service, it's just kind of something they do on a circuit. day to day, so just FYI on that.
Marcia, sorry, Claudia.
Yes.
Marcia gave me a letter, she'd like me to read it. It's from a it's from a resident, it's to council. It's actually a complimentary letter regarding public works that they made.
Please. We like good news.
Dear Borough Council members, just a short note to compliment the work crew for the job on our alley. When you take into consideration this is not their specialty, the job turned out as to be done by professionals. It was especially important to our family that we have no street in front of our home. Please pass on our regards to the workers, the Thompsons, 125 Elgin Street. P.S. It came to my attention that the board had a moment of silence for my late wife, Martha Thompson. I can't tell you how much that meant to our family. I think that is the reason why we both have lived in Crafton for our entire lives, never wanting to live anywhere else. Thank you for that. Respectfully, Homer Thompson and family.
Thank you.
He died November 4th.
Yep.
A couple weeks after mine. Monday after mine.
Well,
Yeah, we got that letter right after that meeting, and then
We all went to school together.
all right. If there's not anything else, let's move on to the manager's report.
All right, pretty brief tonight. It's in between the budget workshops and the final passage, so, that's kind of the main projects we've got going on, so nothing additional to report there. Just the agenda item detail, which you will see the first two motions under administration are related to either real estate tax refunds or the sewer deduct meter refunds. That's essentially if you have like a spigot or something outdoors that doesn't go into the water treatment system, you can get refunded for any of the sewage bill fees that you pay on the gallons that come out of that. So those are approved by motion, the first two under administration. The third is to approve resolution 2019-20 requesting a grant from the H2O water supply, sanitary sewer and stormwater projects program. So this is something that we're working on in concert with some of the people, the project managers at Gateway, where we are looking to try and pick up another $1.2 million towards the Crafton Boulevard sewer separation project. It would be great if we could just match one grant with another. It's a large ask. You tend to see more grants go towards the small water and sewer program, which is sort of the little brother of this. It's just, under $500,000 versus over $500,000. But it tends to award a little earlier in the year, so if we don't get it this year, give it another shot next year, see if we can, any amount to lower the burden of our match is a plus, especially with reapplying for the GROW grant next year. So that's just, one of those resolutions that you have to do to authorize submitting it. The due date is December 13th, so probably right around our last meeting of the year, we'll be putting the grant app in, and letting our reps and senators know. Fingers crossed on that one. So the last two motions are just pay applications for one of the O&M sewer contracts, and the second one is for the concrete work that has been completed on the 2019 road program. So this has all been inspected, checked out by our people at Gateway. And we did do the ADA ramps and the manhole framings and some of the other concrete work, and we will be back for the asphalt early next year. So unless there are any questions, that's
moving right on
everything.
to the business agenda.
Yep.
I have a couple questions.
You want to do that now, or when you're in motion?
Well, they're based off the report, they're not
Okay.
really motionable items.
Okay.
So one is the newsletter, is it finished? When is the newsletter coming out?
We asked for all the different submissions by the end of the month, ideally. Usually it takes a little while longer to wrangle those, but we're shooting for early January.
Early January. So in the October newsletter,
Fall, winter.
whatever it
2019.
was, there wasn't real clear. I spoke to a couple of people that didn't know that we pick up the leaves. When people have moved here, they don't necessarily know everything that we all know because we've lived here for too many years. The reality though is it could be a little bit more conveying of some of the services that we do in fact offer. It says through December 1st, but there really isn't a lot of information in newsletters what that means. And the other thing is, we do pay extra for the, how do you say, electronics recycling, what do we call the extra fee?
Electronic waste.
Are we talking about the hazardous waste pickup or the, because that's what the option is for the house, the HHW.
I guess I don't know enough about either.
Yeah,
Can
so
we-
the electronics pickup is like you can call to
Right.
arrange them picking up a TV. Whereas household hazardous waste is like paint.
Maybe a little more detail in there about that, because most
Yeah.
people are, that I've spoken with, I was speaking to everybody, but who I've spoken to have no idea about these things even exist.
So there's, at the beginning of the year, when the first garbage bill goes out, there is a full information flyer that Waste Management puts in there. So just depending on space, it might be more advisable to, send a link over to the website than to reprint all of that into a newsletter.
That makes
Because the
sense.
Waste Management stuff is
Very detailed.
possibly
Maybe it
free,
says,
also
maybe it
it's
just
a
says in a
basic
newsletter,
answer.
check out the website for information on,
Or
it, and
your
then have a
January bill.
corresponding,
Your January bill
Right,
as well.
right.
Okay.
So we'll put a blurb, do a
We'll
little borough services blurb, something like that.
that'd be great.
What I'll do, I can
You're doing a lot of great things that people should be aware of and take
And
advantage of.
we did add a page on the website for the leaf pickup and the brush stuff.
What I'll do in the code enforcement officer, because I have stickers, if I see a TV or electronic appliance, stick with all the information, how to contact Waste Management to do a special pickup. So they'll stick it right on a TV screen or a computer, and they'll actually tells the people, they go out and say, how come my TV's here, there'll be a sticker with the information detailing how to get that
Great.
picked up. So if something puts it out, they're not aware of it, we do. If I see it or code enforcement sees it, we'll throw stickers.
Anything else? Anybody else?
Can you put, not that when you shovel your walks and when not to shovel it into the streets,
We do that, we'll do
put
that.
that in there?
We'll do code enforcement and myself, we'll do something like that. We'll do the code, the ordinance.
Usually the
fines
code
and
enforcement
penalties.
section is seasonal themed. So whatever issues of the
Under the season.
season we publish, which would be snow this time around.
Okay, so we'll get more information about that. We'll have a piece about looking at the waste management bill for all that information and a link to the website, that information. All right, then moving on to the business agenda. A motion to approve the real estate and road tax refunds as requested by Jordan Tax Service at a total amount of $3,992.54.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion, questions?
Is this normal?
Yes.
Yes.
That amount is normal? It's not low?
For refunds? Yes. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Motion to approve the deduct meter refunds from the sewer fund as presented at a total amount of $2,577.
What is that?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we're gonna have Eric second that. All right.
I'll explain. So, if you have outside space, all right, you can put a meter on that water flow, and that meter read will be deducted, or will be calculated, and you will be refunded a amount for the gallons that were not, directly discharged into the sewer. So that's the whole point, is to, it's just a meter read, and if you want to participate, you have to go and install your own meter on that, space. So let's say I participate in the program once I found out about it. So I bought one that qualified, I had it installed, and I think it was a couple weeks ago, Public Works dropped by, took a meter read, compared it against last year, made sure that, I wasn't running my house off of that, and as long as reasonable, they are gonna cut
Definitely
me.
are not, from being around that you're getting.
Yeah.
And so typically,
There's
it's
no
like,
meter on the sewer.
There's
only
no meter,
Right, so-
you have to put in a deduct meter.
For like people that have sprinkler systems.
yeah, so Sheffield, McDermott, and places like that that do a lot of water outdoors are the typical people who have
Ice
these.
skating rinks, swimming pools.
Thank you.
All right.
Can I just add to this? These things, they come up every year. It would be really helpful if we put in here what the delta is, just like the last one. If it's 3,900, if it's 2,500, is that a 10% increase, 50% reduction? Something that benchmarks it against the prior
Yeah.
years, just to see, oh, why did that happen, right?
Right, well, I mean, if you see these numbers without annual context, they don't really mean much, so.
Context is important.
All right, just a second, because I was looking for that list. No, list. The last weekend, thank you.
Madam President, we have a motion on the floor to be voted on.
Yes, we do.
Just a friendly reminder.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. A motion to approve resolution 2019-20 requesting a grant from the H2OPA Water Supply, Sanitary Sewer and Stormwater Projects Program for the Crafton Boulevard Sewer Separation Project in the amount of $1,250,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions?
Oh, get it.
Gonna give it a shot. We're trying.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to Public Works. Motion to approve pay application number 2 for the O&M sewer repairs, Contract A, excavation repairs project to Roto-Rooter Services Company at an amount of $34,057.50 as recommended by the Borough Engineer.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Motion to approve the pay application number 1 for the 2019 road program to Melee and Sons Incorporated at an amount of $105,000, not $105,953.08 as recommended by the Borough Engineer. This pay application represents the concrete work including ADA ramp replacements and manhole frame and lid replacements that have been completed by the contractor this year.
So moved.
Questions, discussion?
I have a couple of questions. So this work was just completed in October, and the snow's gonna fly and the salt's gonna come down on concrete that hasn't cured. So what sort of assurance that we have that we're not gonna have a bunch of $105,000 worth of fault concrete?
There's a 2-year maintenance bond, so
Okay.
if anything goes
So
wrong.
just a second, let's let the engineer.
The concrete cures fully in 28 days. The
Okay,
cylinder breaks that they test is to ensure that it's reached the required design strength of 4,000 PSI. So all of that has and will be, is met, and so the issue of the strength during the winter should not affect the concrete. It'll be re-inspected when it gets through the winter to ensure that, and any faulty work, cracking, anything of that nature will be replaced by the contractor.
and this was the contractor that was needed to be chased to get this work done in the first place?
This was the contractor that continued to delay coming to Crafton as a result of other work. And so the idea was when they did come and start work, this work had to be done first before any paving. So we got them here, they started the work, and then before they finished, we told them, finish this work, it's good winter work, concrete placement is good in the fall season, even into winter, but they didn't have to do winter placement, but not to pave. So, like I said, that concrete work, it'll be ready for next year. Any issues can be repaired, which are unlikely, but then the paving, they can come right in immediately and pave. So this is $100,000 worth of work that's complete, we don't have to wait for in the spring to do the paving.
So my question is on the bond, we didn't have any penalties associated with them not getting the work done this year. If there are any problems with the repair or what have you, do we have some sort of consequence in place to get it back from them, to make the repairs, to make it right, as opposed to try and fix it to make it look okay?
As I said, there'll be an inspection out of the gate, so that will be one opportunity. Before they leave and close out the contract, anytime but before then, the items can be found and replaced or repaired. And after the contract is closed, you have a 2-year period to call them back to make any repairs as it relates to defective placement or materials at those ramps, including the paving and all the concrete work.
So it's just a matter of there was no consequence built in for them not showing up this year, it was just a...
I brought this subject up at the COG meeting last week, and the discussion around the table was that this is actually not an uncommon occurrence, because there are years that there's just not enough good days to be able to do this. And so it's not that, I don't believe that we have been neglectful in the type of contracts that we've been letting.
That's what I'm wondering, is there some sort of clause or something we should be looking to adopt in the future?
Right, I think the whole issue with paving, and which was discussed at the COG, is that this is a weather permitting sort of situation. And I don't think anybody would work with those kinds of penalties that we would typically put in, a different type of construction for private building or something like that.
I mean, you could theoretically, under our contracts, Rick, you might have to spot me on the exact amount here, it might be $500 a day or something. If somebody just fully disappears, you're not in contact with them, you're not getting any sort of, it rained, and da-da-da-da-da, and I mean, that's to a certain extent discretionary, but it's true. It's not ideal, but you do see stuff like this happen under these contracts.
Yeah, I just raised the question, are we doing what's usual and what's best
Yeah,
in order to
evidently,
get the
in
work done?
my discussion about this at the COG, we are. Anything else? All right, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. So moving on to discussion items, we have an item that we had briefly touched on at a recent previous meeting, the joint UCC Appeals Board with the Shar West COG. And the discussion, it would be the sort of thing where we would need an intergovernmental agreement to sign on with this. And this is basically something that the COG is trying to pull together, because a number of municipalities don't have the appropriate board. And the idea is that the COG would make sure that there are 3 members for this board available for any of the municipalities that would participate in it. There's no initial cost involved with this, however, as we would with, if we had our own board, a full board, which we do not, that there are costs, and we would, any municipality will incur the costs as they utilize the board. So I don't know if there's any further discussion, any questions about that. We talked about being generally interested in moving it forward.
What could the costs entail, I guess, hypothetically? Thousands, hundreds, millions?
Do you want me to go ahead and talk about this a little?
Which one of you, pardon?
I mean, I'm happy to address what I know, but typically your UCC appeals board will not be activated but for once every 5 years. They're very irregular, so you're talking hundreds or thousands of dollars of costs that are typically covered by the applicants who file the appeals. So I don't think the borough would really be out any hard dollars in a situation like this.
It's essentially the same as if we had our own individual UCC board. It's just that it's, because you do need, actual qualifications and construction project management and so on and so forth, it's hard to find those people in each community. So there are typically clauses in, existing ordinances where you can go and get somebody outside of the borough if they should apply to sit on this volunteer board. But then you're just essentially poaching from a neighboring municipality that can't fill their own board either.
Right, so basically, the COG is saying, let's create one, I mean, a little bit like the back door, in a way, is that, they've.
What is the back door?
Oh, Rob, so basically, the
It's
COG
the
has.
sewer cleaner.
The sewer cleaner is an extremely expensive piece of equipment, hard to maintain, hard to get someone to drive. And so one of the things that the COG has done a number of years ago, they purchased it and they let it out to all municipalities. And so it's very similar to that they would make sure that there is a qualified UCC board available to any municipality at any point in time that we would need one.
And then the risk being, we're giving up to this board, whomever they so might be, the ability to pass judgment on whatever brought them from Crafton, potentially.
But as has been pointed out, the people who sit on the board have to have certain qualifications. And right now, we have not been able to fill the three-person board because we don't have applicants, enough applicants.
Seems like a minor risk that we would be.
Yes.
The risk
Exactly.
is giving up a little bit of independence versus not having a board full when you need
Having
it
a
to
good
succeed.
consultant that you can call on, qualified consulting board. So, anyway, so our next point would be to actually, we do have a sample.
Yes, that was on the
intergovernmental-
drive, yeah.
That was on the drive. So the question is, do we want to bring that forward to vote on that? Or do we want to kick it forward?
What was the question?
Do we,
Motion to
because we
approve the
motion, do we
intergovernmental
want?
Well,
Agreement.
to advertise.
Yeah,
Yes.
approve advertising.
Because it has to be done by an intergovernmental agreement, which
So we need a
requires.
motion to move forward on this.
Right.
So, may I make a motion? I'd like to make a motion to move, to advertise,
Can I second what he's saying?
yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
for the use,
For the joint UCC
Yeah,
board.
joint
as-
UCC.
We'll put it in the ordinance
Right.
motion format.
Okay, so we
Steve,
have a
can you just
motion, we
set
have
up?
a second. Do we have any
Thanks.
further question or discussion of this? And since it's in motion.
We know it's minimal cost, we're giving up minimal independence, and it's something we've been unable to.
Okay, and so we have a motion on the table that wasn't on the agenda, so any community comments about this? None? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion passes. I'm sure that we did. I'm sure that we did.
Does the COG have a form ordinance that they've, I
Yes.
know
Yeah.
I've reviewed the agreement, but if you
He
could
does
forward
have a
that
form.
along?
Oh, I see what you're,
Yeah.
the agreement, I think, is probably what the,
Yeah, if they have an ordinance, that's fine, otherwise we could put one
We'll
together.
double check.
No big-
Okay, all right. Any other discussion items?
Yeah, real quick, since we just talked about I'm just going through the sewer fund, deduct meter refunds, and I see we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 participants. And of these participants, like Phil, is the only person.
Mm-hmm.
Most of these are Walgreens and
I think it's like a 3-4 split.
yeah. Yeah, but at any rate, and then I Googled it to see what it was, and there was a couple hits. So can we add something maybe to our website if it's applicable about a program
Yeah.
like this? Just to Eric's normal points about not advertising what people can do. So, because I saw like a hit for Cranberry, McCandless, Peters Township, South Fayette, they have it on their websites. So,
I mean, actually, I found out about it through a COG meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just comes out of
Even
the sewer fund, ultimately, it's, just.
Okay. Any other discussion items this evening?
Just gonna bring it up again. When we put the metrics on the report of the service requests, where are we year to date, where are we historically, et cetera, for the,
Oh, yeah,
Service request
sure, I
will come.
apologize, I just forgot it this month.
So you will have it at our,
I'll upload it tomorrow.
okay, and then but we'll be able to have them on at our December 9th meeting that we can read
could just
Um,
make it part of your standing report, that would be.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what he was asking for, thank you. Okay,
Do you want me to just do the end of the month?
I
Second
just
meeting of the
want-
month?
My goal is, I think it is a very valuable service that you're bringing to the community, that the community has no idea exists. And you can't say it enough times for it to eventually catch on and begin to be utilized. I think the last report we saw, 76 requests in a year out of how many thousands of people. It seems like, and anytime you walk down the street, somebody has another idea for you, probably shouldn't fall on our minds to remember to bring it up somewhere, but to remind them that there's a forum here to get this addressed and to give you some insights as to what people need and.
Set the paper trail.
That's right, that's right.
And please, never hesitate to, whether you prefer to do a service request, email, call, anything. We're here to do what people need, so, just so that's super clear.
So, question. If I call in and I say, hey, I have a service request, do you then, or do the staff then go in and log in on their behalf?
Well, so this is what we were discussing at the meeting last time with some of the citizen comment about, essentially we have paper sheets and Excel until we, council approved adopting the Tracer asset management system, which is awesome. We're sort of moving through the demo phase of that. We've actually started using it to log some of our permit paperwork and things like that. So part of what's being implemented is there's like a little work order section that we may adopt later on, just depending on.
so then the intent is to move towards logging all calls and.
Right, because it's
and
coming from a
service
property
requests through
somewhere.
Tracer.
Yeah.
Currently, it does get logged onto Excel sheets.
It's either, if it's something that's like permit information or inspection or say the backflow.
But we are
or
we're
But-
tracking phone requests.
Not individually, one by one. I mean, like if somebody calls and asks me, can they rent the community hall? No, we are
No.
not putting that in a spreadsheet right now.
But we're talking about standing requests for like public works.
You
those
have
sorts
a,
of
you have a
things.
service request form, right?
The request I get, yeah, the borough has it. What happens with me, if a call-in comes in to one of the administrative staff, I'll get an email saying service request, name, address, and type of request sent to me for a response. So then I'll email back and say, completed Thursday, November 21st.
So we are doing it currently with an email chain.
That's how I'm communicating.
Okay, all right, so, and if it's a question or a call that needs some type of service, it's getting put into an email and being sent to Rob. Rob is taking care of it in his department, Public Works, and then acknowledging when it's complete at this point. And the direction is that we're formally going to be standing up that portion of Tracer, and we'll have better
Very much
tracking
looking forward to that.
in the new year, in the new year. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, does that,
Yeah.
okay? Anything else? All right, would you mind reading the community announcements? I'll give you
Yes.
back the one agenda to see
That
what
was
has left.
left. All right. Community announcements. Please note that the borough offices will be closed for the Thanksgiving holiday on November 28th and 29th. Light Up Crafton is on November 30th. The library will be hosting activities from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. and the tree and circle lighting will be at 7:45 p.m. Gingerbread house making has been moved to December 7th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Please RSVP to the library by December 4th. The cost is $5 per child. The Christmas and Crafton House Tour is on December 8th from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. Advance tickets are $15. Please contact the Borough Administrative Office with any questions. Santa visits Crafton by fire truck with his elves from the Crafton Volunteer Fire Department on December 14th. The truck will start in Crafton around 9:30 a.m. Listen for the siren to let you know that Santa is on your street. Please note that this date has changed from the original December 21st that we had listed at the beginning of the year.
Just, can you repeat that last bit one more time, please?
Brad, please. Not tonight.
That's totally on the fire department.
That is just, it's usually that week and it is not this year. So we're letting you know.
All right, so final community comments. Dan Sindrick?
Thank you. Dan Sindrick, 45 Creighton Avenue. I'm here today to ask council if they would consider adopting a non-discrimination ordinance. We don't have one in the borough, and I'll just explain shortly here what it means. In the state of Pennsylvania, the Human Relations Commission is the group that enforces state laws that prohibit discrimination. But that law was passed in 1955, and it does not include all classes of people. An amendment to that Human Relations Act has been attempted to get through the legislature. It's called the Pennsylvania Fairness Act. It attempts to amend the Human Relations Act to extend equal non-discrimination protections to LGBT plus Pennsylvanians. But the act's been tied up in the legislature for many years. So some people, simply because of who they are, simply because of their sexual orientation, their gender identity, do not have complete civil rights protection in Pennsylvania. All Pennsylvanians deserve to be able to live, work, and thrive in their communities, free from unfair and unjust discrimination. That means that in municipalities without non-discrimination ordinances, people may be not hired or fired or evicted simply because they identify as LGBT+, and they have little resources to fight back. As of this month, 57 municipalities in Pennsylvania, cities, boroughs, and townships, have passed LGBT+ inclusive non-discrimination ordinances. But in southwest Pennsylvania, no borough has passed a similar ordinance. The city of Pittsburgh has one, Mount Lebanon has one, and one township has one. The president of that one township, which passed their discrimination ordinance late last year, has said that providing these rights and protections is, quote, the civil rights issue of our time. That quote was by the president of Ross Township, Commissioners, Mr. Steve Cordell, who is our solicitor. Because the state has not acted, as Mr. Corbel has said, quote, it is up to municipal leaders to do so, unquote. I'm sure he would be able to assist council in forming our non-discrimination ordinance. By adopting a non-discrimination ordinance, we can show that the people of Crafton are not bigots, are not racists, are not homophobes. We can show that Crafton Borough is an open, welcoming, and diverse community. I hope you would consider doing an adoption of non-discrimination ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Solicitor Corbel, can you speak to that just momentarily?
Yeah, it is within the borough's authority to adopt such an ordinance. There are many, there's one particular form of said ordinance that is out there, that the ordinance that we passed in Ross was based on, that the ordinance passed in Mount Lebanon is based upon. So if it's something that council would like to consider, I'm certainly able to help. The ordinance itself creates a non-discrimination law but also creates an equal opportunity board that is tasked with hearing complaints from residents who may have been discriminated against. So you would have to consider that as well, and the ability to fill the positions on a board that have at least three members. So, again, happy to assist if that's the desire of Borough Council.
All right, thank you. Any comments on that? I can certainly say that I am sure that the new council that will be coming in January would be very quick to act on that. So I would suggest that you have.
We act on it now?
Well, things have to be drafted. So what I was just getting ready to say is I suggest that you prepare for that. I don't think we have any objections here. Fine.
I will be happy to do so.
Okay, and then Susan, thank you for waiting till the very bitter end. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right, I don't mind. It's always fun to hear what you all are discussing. My name's Susan Muka. I live on Clearview Avenue. You probably know that I'm here to discuss, sorry about that. I'm sorry, I'm here to discuss the, I don't know how much I have to share. The situation on Clearview Avenue that is still undone. So I was here on September 23rd. Can you share?
Yep.
I was here on September 23rd. September 26th, I met with RJ and two representatives from Gateway. We looked at Clearview from 277 to 211 on the Clearview Trail side of the street. Over 2 weeks later, Gateway got an updated punch list out to Polino. That was October 11th. Sometime after that, Polino said they weren't doing the work according to RJ. On November 15th, a letter went from Crafton Borough and RJ to Polino. As of today, no one's heard from Polino. I need to know where we are, what are the next steps, and what is the time frame. There's collateral damage from not getting these projects done. First of all, the street looks terrible. It's been over a year since the trees were damaged. They haven't been repaired. The borough crew can't cut the grass with their equipment because of the, well, it's not grass, it's weeds. They can't cut it. They can't keep it down because they can't use their equipment. So they're out there with weed whackers on property that size. That's costing the borough a lot more money, and it's certainly not very efficient. And because the whole area looks so distressed, people are using it as a dumping ground. We're getting more than the normal amount of yard stuff and miscellaneous branches and everything thrown over there. So what's the plan, guys? I'd like everyone to pick up a piece of something to write with.
Thank you,
And
Susan.
add on the bottom, what can you do to help?
Thank you, Susan. All right, start with the engineer.
Yes, this has been
Thank you, Susan.
long and arduous process. I'll just talk a little bit about situations like this where contractors, and Crafton's had its share of contractors that are not cooperative, don't respond, and it's difficult to make them adhere to their contracts. There are liquidated damages, as the solicitor may attest. It's difficult to apply and to actually collect liquidated damages. Just in the law itself, there appears to be a lot of loopholes regardless of what you write in the contract. It can be done. It is expensive and it takes time as well. So that's normally avoided at all costs from an engineering perspective. Once we can no longer get the contractor to work through all the tactics that we have, and it has to go to the solicitor, it's usually a very bad situation that will take a long time and a lot of money to resolve. So we do what we can to not get into that situation. So one of the things is to allow the contractor time. So for example, in this case, the contractor claimed, as we submitted our first list of punch list items, he understood, and he would get to those repairs on a rainy day, quote unquote. So what they're saying is they're really busy, they can't mobilize crews, but when they get people available, they'll come out and begin to make those corrections. So that's something we usually look for and allow. But that does delay the ultimate resolution. But to say that's not good enough, get to the site tomorrow, is just unrealistic. So we use tactics like that. We work with contractors. You try not to fight with them. So we've gotten a lot of things done. There have been a lot of punch list items that have been resolved. It's down to these items that are left. Our recommendation was we felt that we can no longer be effective in getting the contractor out by what we have done and can do with threats and admonishments, etc. We felt that is complete from our end. So we suggested that the next step would be to finalize the list, have the municipality write the letter that says, look, it draws the final line in the sand, it says these are the things that need done, get them done, or we will hire a contractor to do them and deduct them from the remaining funds that we owe you. So that's what we recommended, that's what was done, and that was done, I guess, 2 weeks ago. And so we're waiting now, all of us are waiting to hear back from Foligno to see if they're going to go out and make the final corrections, or if they're going to force your hand to either have Public Works do it and send them a bill, to hire a contractor, or, which I would not recommend, is give them more time. So those are sort of the options. I think it's run its course, and that is what we have proposed to try to bring this to resolution.
Okay, and this is the letter that was sent on the 15th of November?
Yes, and it
Did
did
we give them a
instruct them.
time frame?
It was supposed to be done on the 15th of November. So beyond that, no, because that was sort of the final deadline. However, it did directly ask them to contact Gateway Engineers, and I guarantee you the second they picked up the phone and called Grant, I would have known about it if it happened. So, no contact at all.
Okay.
For well over a week.
Okay, so do we have some idea, some estimate? Are there things that Public Works can do?
I
Should
would
we
say
be hiring,
at
Rob,
least-
should we be hiring someone else to do it?
I mean, Public Works could do it this time of year, might be a little tough.
Okay, so that rules them out.
And again, the tree pruning and removals, I believe,
Some of those can be an
we're not
arborist.
an arborist on site
All
to
right.
do it, so.
So what will it take to get someone contracted to get this taken care of?
It has to be underneath the bed, the threshold.
Oh,
If it's
yeah,
over,
I
then
don't think it would be that
I don't
expensive.
know.
The main outstanding items are the stripping, replacing and reseeding the topsoil on the Clearview Trail side of the street, and I mean, it's gonna require digging up 4 inches, which I'm sure you guys can handle, just when is more of the question. The next one is replacing or repairing the concrete header, the collar that meets where, you know, the brick, where Foligno claims that the plows have damaged it after it was put in. The position of Gateway is that the damage occurred when the crews were using a jackhammer to remove the asphalt material placed directly adjacent to the header, in lieu of restoring the area
So-
directly with brick. So that one's a little more
Okay, so
labor
okay, what I'm looking for is the solution, the next steps and the time frame.
How much do we still owe them?
15K, something like that.
Yeah, it's about that. I can't remember the exact amount.
And in your estimation, that should cover the work that needs to be done?
It should. You know, it depends on what it would cost to do the trimming. I know
Yeah,
they did
that's
some.
the biggest question
It's not
mark.
all of it.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the first step. Let's get a company out to give a bid estimate on, I think we have a report from an arborist on what
Yes.
should be done. So that scope's defined.
And I believe that arborist was actually added as part of the shade tree
Yes, he was.
commission.
And I'd be
resolution.
happy.
Yeah.
I was impressed with him whenever I walked the road with him.
Well, there's contractors actually have arborists on their crews. I mean,
I beg your
there's a
pardon?
local crew that a tree crew that has an arborist that's part of the crew,
Who?
2020. I'm just saying.
There are options, I think,
Yeah.
but the point is more so that because we have that list of preferred shade tree commission arborists, and the one that evaluated those trees is on there, we already have a viable arborist report for those
So the
trees.
scope's defined, it would be, to me, it would be giving the scope to
And then
contractors.
getting quotes.
And if they have someone on site that can oversee the scope, great, within their company. If they don't, then part of the cost is to bring the arborist back and to watch them do the work. So, maybe 3 phone bids to get, because this is,
So
I
it's-
believe, in your threshold.
So is this something that between Gateway and you can move this forward?
I just wanna get a consensus from, or at least, some feedback from council first as to if they're non-responsive on, say, the concrete header, how we wanna deal with that, what is the
I
next
think
step?
they have
gonna be legal,
demonstrated
whatever.
their non-responsiveness. Is anybody here gonna argue with that?
Yeah,
Yes?
okay, my opinion is like there's some ranking here of issues, right? And when it comes down to like a couple questions, right? The stripping of the topsoil, do we really need to strip said topsoil, or can we simply add more topsoil?
Susan has an opinion on this?
We don't have topsoil,
Right.
that's the
That's-
problem. When they dug up the road, everything they threw on the other side was everything that was left. So there's aggregate. Whenever we did the walkthrough, I took a shovel and I gave it to Alberto, and I said, Alberto, I'd like you to try to dig this topsoil. He couldn't, because
Well,
it's
that-
not
that's-
topsoil.
It's quite solid.
So my point is, I really didn't think it was topsoil myself, so I just personally believe like that is an issue, but now we're sort of in the winter months, if we hydroseed the hillside, we're not gonna have, a lot of success. So it sounds like we need to understand what the unit price is to get this work done, and so that is a priority. First thing that has to be on the punch list is that situation. That is a huge issue because it contributes to E&S issues. The header, I think we're gonna, eating that one, because I haven't heard that we have documentation that supports our case, and this goes back to RJ's setting up Tracer in the future. I would really like to see Gateway and all our personnel use something to document things before and after work commences, so we don't find ourselves in these situations. And what was others? The trees, I think that's sort of low-hanging fruit, so to speak. Just clean it up, and then we make provisions to, restore, beautify, improve. And I don't think we can necessarily, put that on the contractor. I mean, we can try to recover cost, but it just comes down to what is within reason, and, how successful are we going to be on the retaining side. I mean, that's what I like to know from Steve. Do you think they'll, Foligno being the size that they are, do you think they'll go to bat for 15K? So, and then the question is, I think it should be really stated that, hey, Foligno, have you been reading what we're doing in Crafton Borough? Do you want to be disqualified in the future from, being considered a responsible bidder in Crafton Borough? Because from what I understand, we have that in our toolkit to exclude them if we so fit.
Yeah, they can be debarred by the borough.
Right, so, I think that should be communicated to them, that, listen, we want to work with you, we'd like you to do work for us in the future, however, you're making it really difficult for us to go that direction in the future. I mean, we're talking about millions of dollars of potential investment in this community, and they're blowing us off. And I think we now have the paper to say, look, we're going to be busy, work with us.
I have a couple questions as
Sure.
well. I'm of the opinion that we should try to do all the work at one time instead of worrying about doing it in stages. However, that's just my opinion. I have a couple questions just on like a 30,000-foot view of this thing, because when I hear things like contracts can't be enforced, like I'm not a lawyer, I didn't take Contracts 101, but just Wikipediaing it, they're supposed to be sacrosanct, and that kind of rings, like a weird bell for me. So what's up with that, kind of, in the sense that, we have a contract with them, how is it possible that we are not able to enforce said contract? Is it just,
Well, I just want to clarify
Just
that
you can't.
it's not that I said that we can't, it's that it's difficult and expensive. So I'll let Steve.
Yeah,
take it
no,
from there.
What Rick's saying is, in order for us to do that, you have to file a lawsuit, right? So you want to get the work done or reimbursed for the work, you could be in litigation for 2 years or more. And that's the difficult and the costly part, then you're paying lawyers, and that's why I think one of the suggestions Rick made was to just do the work, get a contractor to do the work.
You're saying we have a $15,000 reserve that hasn't been paid,
Right.
and so the idea is, can we get the necessary work done for somewhere around that amount of money and
Right.
call it a day? And to Phil's point, extract, future consequences for not being responsive.
yeah, I guess I'm just curious to that point, just simply, it dovetails on Eric's earlier comments about whether or not we're structuring things in a particular way, and your statements about going to the COG meeting and hearing that it's just part and parcel of how local government works, unfortunately. So essentially, really, there's, to your point, I mean, it's the matter of, is it worth it, and it's not, and that's.
For something like this at 15 grand, I don't think it's worth
It's
it.
more expedient.
Yeah.
Phil?
If it was 15 million or 1.5 million that we're
Right.
talking about, then you got
He
the.
just hit it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's about what we're considering retainage and,
Right.
and how we're moving forward with the pay apps. And I think we need to do a better job as a whole on, validating and getting sign off from the stakeholder groups before we apply, we allow the pay apps to be paid.
Mhm.
And that's something early on, there's been discussion, 6, 8 months ago, like, hey, why we should hold back funds and, sizable funds, the fear of not following through on our end, and, being in the rodeo now, 4 years, I can tell you, really, money talks, and I think 15K probably isn't enough, and we need to be more vigilant on these pay apps in the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. But we're sitting here with a 15,000 reserve. We have a dwindling but significant list that needs to be done, and what I'd like to see is between the engineer and the manager, we figure out a plan.
Yeah, you guys just need to pull the trigger. I mean, the more time that they spend debating
exactly.
it, I mean, you're burning up time.
Right.
Yeah, I think we were just looking for some sort of feedback from council, so however we settled it, it didn't come back around that it was unsatisfactory, or we neglected something, or spent money we shouldn't have in resolving it. So
Okay.
that's
All right.
Do you have to put it back out for bid then?
not something of this size.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be that, no.
Yeah, they can just.
They can just go
Yeah,
in.
particularly if you do certain things in-house.
So the answer is, we're moving forward.
I just have one more question, just to finish
Yes, oh, I'm sorry.
Susan's time frame. I guess it's irrelevant to a point, but just like final, have closure. When was the rainy date supposed to be? When did they tell us that they
That went
were?
on for about 8 months, right?
You're right.
Okay.
We were
Yeah.
waiting for rainy days. For me, I can't remember if it was that long, but
It was
It was-
a really long time.
right.
All right.
I was just trying to get them to come in, and they would
There you
show
go.
up and do small things here and there, but nothing of significance.
Okay.
All right. So we've directed the engineers and the manager to move forward with using the retainage to address those issues.
Could I get clarification too?
Yes.
Is that in-house work as well? Can we bring
Well,
Robin to that to see what
If
they
they
can
have
do?
time, if they can do it.
It's kind of tough right now. I mean, we're
Okay.
getting into finalizing the leaf season. I have some tree prunings removals I have to do in-house, and it's,
So it sounds like they don't have any bandwidth in the short term.
Got it. How about the timing of this? This is something like topsoil doesn't go real well in December and
Then if
January,
it doesn't, then
right?
you have to make the recommendation, as
Okay.
Philip mentioned, as when is the appropriate time to do
Good,
it.
just check.
And I think that Susan is, will accommodate the idea that it's not the appropriate time, but with a commitment that we'll do it, at the earliest appropriate time.
And then
And
that
that we
might fit,
have, that we have someone lined up to do it at that appropriate time.
or it could fit in-house with
Maybe,
Rob's crew in the spring.
yes.
We'll talk.
it's additional help.
Right, but what we're looking for is to have this addressed so that we have a recommendation of who, what, when, and where.
Okay, got it.
Okay?
Is this the only time Flino ever did this, or was it anything else?
I don't know.
I'm not aware of Crafton, no.
If there are no additional questions?
Not on that, but I do, on November 12th, we talked about our solicitor coming back with some things to read about a social media policy. Do we have anything coming back?
No, not at this time, I'm still working on it.
Okay.
All right, that's it. Motion to
One
adjourn?
more question.
All
At
right.
the end of the budget meeting, the last session, there was some discussion that am I saying the Parks Board, the Recs Board, somebody
Recreation.
was going to meet and talk about some sort of equipment purchases. I didn't see anything on the bills list, but that probably would have been too quick to hit the bills list. Has this all been resolved, and are there decisions that are being made on these end of years fire sales for fun stuff for kids?
So we did a couple different things. One is we talked to a couple of the rec board members, but they haven't had their, scheduled meeting
Okay.
yet. I think that would be early December, which we could still make a move.
Right.
But however, Rob did take a drive down to Lincoln Park, since that was one of the parks in question, take a bunch of photos, do some measurements and things like that. It would be tough to fit a play place type item in there without taking out, say, the swing set or the pool jungle gym, or just because of the it's not even necessarily just that physically the play place wouldn't fit in there, but there are now much wider required
So
fall
the rec board is
areas.
going to get information by which they can decide on something that is more